Hello everyone and welcome to the Good Old Gamer. So today we're going to be taking a look at the HP V10 3600 C14 dual rank B-Die memory kit. Yes, that's a mouthful, that's why I said it kind of slow there. But yeah, this memory kit was really one of the best deals on Amazon. They were going for about $210. They seem to be sold out right now, but I picked one up and I wanted to do a video showing, well, is there a benefit to going with the dual rank B-Die kits versus something like the Patriot Vipers, which are single rank, and I wanted to see how it compares to two kits of Vipers, which cost a little bit less than this. If you get them on sale, you can get them significantly less, usually around $160 for two kits versus $210 for one dual rank kit. So this way we'll see, is it worth spending the extra money for the better RAM? Or are you better off going with the cheaper stuff? So that's what we're going to be talking about here today. So let's check it out. Hello everyone, and Future Chris here. I wanted to go ahead and explain the parts in a little bit more detail than I was originally planning because of some of the results being definitely interesting. So I went ahead and tested this on two different motherboards. We have the ASRock Z690 Steel Legend. That's where all the tests were run. And then I went ahead and reran tests on the MSI Z690A Pro. And without spoiling anything, the results are definitely not what I was expecting, so I wanted to let you guys know that I tested on two completely different systems and achieved the exact same results, except I did get higher memory frequencies in dual rank with the ASRock Z690. So that was actually a little surprising as well. I could only achieve 3,800 on the A Pro, whereas I was able to get to the full 4,000 with the ASRock Steel Legend. Now, these are both 6-layer PCB boards. They're basically the same. It's just silicon lottery that this board just happened to be a little bit better than this one. We are using the Intel Core i5 12600K. This is my standard test CPU because this is the CPU I recommend if you want high performance gaming at the best possible price point. So that's what I have sitting in here right now. All tests were done using my buddy Austin's RTX 3090. So this way we have the absolute maximum. And I did include some 50% scaling results if you want to see when and where GPU is the limitation. So you can see with and without GPU limitations. All other tests were done at 1080p high, which you will see here in a second. I also want to throw a shout out to the DEEPCOOL Gamax AK620 cooler. This is a dual tower cooler. I've been using these for a while now. I wanted to highlight this because this is able to keep the 12600K overclocked in a very cool configuration, typically around 65 to 75 C with a single fan. It does come with a dual fan. So I wanted to let you guys know these were actually on sale here recently. They might still be on sale on Amazon for about 50 bucks. And in reality, I found that this is as good, if not sometimes superior, to a 240 millimeter radiator all-in-one. And obviously these have the advantage of if a fan dies, you can just go ahead and buy a new fan. The heatsink will be good pretty much forever. So I did want to highlight that. This is a very good cooler. Hardware Canucks did a very good video on it as well if you want to get more details. But I really like them, and I think I'm going to use this moving forward as my standard cooling solution, as I'm not a big fan of all-in-one liquid coolers. The entire test configuration is listed in the video description, voltages, things of that nature. So you can go ahead and check that out. And if you want to help support the channel and pick any of this stuff up, you can go ahead and do so by using the affiliate links down there. It's one of the easiest ways you can help support. Alrighty guys, so kicking things off with Borderlands 3, we have 1080p high settings. The ones that say 50% is where I used a 50% scaling, so we can check to see if we're GPU limited. So for example, 202 going up to 219, yep, that means you're GPU limited. 153 to 157, maybe just margin of error. But yeah, so this way you have as much data as possible to see what's going on. For right now, we're only going to be focusing on the HP V10s. We will take a look at the Viper kits once we get to the 7-game roundup. I also included a Team Group 3200 C16 XMP single rank kit. So this way, if that's the kit that you're using, because it's the most popular kit out there probably, you can compare to what you could expect using faster memory and overclocking your system. So kicking things off with the stock 3600 C16 XMP dual rank HP V10. Man, I actually got through that. Numbers here, we have 177 FPS on average and 126 on the 1% low. When you overclock to 5.2 gigahertz only on the CPU, leaving XMP, that gets you up to 183 FPS on average, and then 131 on the 1% low. And then if we take a look at the 50% scaling, at these settings, are we GPU limited? Well, yeah, because we jump up to 195 FPS on average, and then up to 137 on the 1% lows. So if we had a faster graphics card, we could get a little bit more performance there. However, the 3090 is getting pretty close to maxing out that configuration. Now, if we go ahead and fully tune the system, going up to DDR4 4000 C16, if you want more information, check the video description. I have more details on the timings there if you're interested. We got 197 FPS on average and 144 on the 1% lows. I love the nice stair-step effect that we get on these 1% lows. Now, are we GPU limited? Yep, still GPU limited, as we can go up to 211 FPS on average and 149 on the 1% lows. Once again, not horribly GPU limited, but it's there, and you can go ahead and see if you happen to have a faster graphics card than a 3090 and you're gaming at 1080p. Today, that seems a little ridiculous, but 2, 3, 4 years from now, you'll probably have something way faster than that gaming at 1080p. All right, so next up is Cyberpunk 2077. Starting off with the stock numbers, we got 138 FPS on average, and then 111 on the 1% low. Jumping that up to 5.2 gigahertz, that gets us up to 139 and 114, so almost no change. Oh wait, look at that. Once we go ahead and drop the scaling, we are horribly GPU limited in this game. This is just not a good game for testing memory or RAM. This is a great game for testing graphics cards, as a 3090 just isn't anywhere near fast enough for this particular game at 1080p. 4090, maybe, but I don't have one of those, and well, technically they're not even out yet. So anyways, theoretically, with a faster graphics card at 1080p with a 5.2 gigahertz 12600K with this memory kit, you can get up to 185 FPS on average, 124 on the 1% low. We're just going to skip this one because, well, GPU limited. And theoretically, if you had a fully tuned 12600K with the HP V10 B-Die kit, you can get up to 200 FPS on average and 141 on the 1% low. So that's pretty nice. We just need graphics cards to catch up. Next up is Elden Ring. I finally figured out how to get the frame rate cap off. So cool, we can use it here. At stock, we have 111 FPS on average, 96 on the 1% low. Going to 5.2 gigahertz gets us a nice boost up to 123 FPS on average, and then 103 on the 1% low. Going ahead and looking at the fully tuned numbers, that gets us up to 129 FPS on average, and then 104 on the 1% low. So Elden Ring really likes the clock speed increase, not so much on the lower latency. So if this is the game that you're trying to run, don't kill yourself on timings. And are we GPU bound? Not really. 131 and 106, that's margin of error. All right, next up is Horizon Zero Dawn. Taking a look at stock, we got 183 FPS on average, 132 on the 1% low. At 5.2 gigahertz, that jumps up to 189 FPS on average, and then 141 on the 1% low. Fully tuned, that gets us all the way up to 193 FPS on average and 144 on the 1% low. Are we GPU bound? A little bit. We could theoretically go up to 208 FPS on average and then 153 on the 1% low. So 3090 is holding up pretty well, getting us most of the performance that this system can produce. Next up, Shadow of the Tomb Raider. At stock, we get 189 FPS on average and 129 on the 1% lows. And then going up to 5.2 gigahertz, that gets us up to 197 FPS on average and then 133 on the 1% low. It's not a big uplift there. However, once we fully tune the system, this is where you can see memory tuning makes a big difference. We get up to 202 FPS on average, not a big jump there. However, up to 148 FPS on that 1% low. So that's a nice jump up from 133. So this game obviously likes the lower latency memory. So are we GPU bound in this game? Yes, we are, as we could theoretically get up to 224 FPS on average and 152 on the 1% low. Not so much here, but we could get a little bit more on that average FPS. About 10% more is there with a faster graphics card. All right, so next up is everybody's latest and greatest favorite benchmarking game. It's actually a fun game, so that's okay. But this is Spider-Man Remastered 1080p high with ray tracing on high. So at stock, the HP V10 comes in at 102 FPS on average and 82 on the 1% low. Jumping up to 5.2 gigahertz gets us up to 108 FPS on average and 187 on the 1% low. Not too bad of a bump, but for 700 extra megahertz, it's not the best. Now, however, once you tune that RAM, we get a nice bump up to 117 FPS on average, really close to that 120 mark, and then 95 on that 1% low, close to that 100 FPS mark. So yeah, that's a nice little bump up on that one. So are we GPU bound in this one? Not at all. So we got the exact same numbers, even at 50% scaling. This is completely CPU bound, and that's why we saw such a massive increase from tuning the RAM. And finally, we have Watchdogs Legion. Taking a look at the V10s at stock, we have 127 FPS on average and 98 on the 1% low. Going up to 5.2 gigahertz gets us a nice bump up to 135 and 106 on the 1% low. That's a good little bump there. And then tuning the memory gets us up to 145 FPS on average and 112 on the 1% low. Not as big of a bump, but still kind of scaling properly. This game does scale very well with just about everything. Are we GPU limited? Not a whole lot. We can get up to 147 FPS on average and 116 on the 1% low. I'd say that this is margin of error over on the averages. This right here is measurable. I'd say that that's probably a little bit outside of margin of error, but not by a whole lot. So I'd say for the most part, yeah, we're getting the most out of our CPU combination with an RTX 3090. Alright guys, time for the 7-game average. So I actually broke this down pretty good, and we're going to take a look and highlight a few of these. So first off, the big thing that you're probably going to notice is if we take a look at the best case scenario, even if we had a faster graphics card, the HP V10 is behind the single rank Vipers by quite a little bit. And yeah, that was the main reason why I was like, hey guys, I really need to double check this. That's why once I saw that, I was like, I have to do, the 4 Vipers. Meanwhile, it's basically the same as that. So the HP V10 dual rank and the 4x8 Vipers are identical. So I'm getting the same numbers here. And the only difference between this configuration and the HP V10 is this is C16. It's not really that big of a difference. Every other setting is the same. So we're talking about +1 on 1 timing. Even when I normalize things like turnaround timings and even the latency, the actual slot latency timings, it didn't make any real difference. So if you have an answer for this, I would find that very interesting. But let's go ahead and see the comparison between each of these configurations. So taking a look at the V10s at stock and then going up to 5.2 gigahertz, that nets us approximately, I rounded up or down, 6% more performance. So you get 6% for 700 megahertz. Doesn't really seem like a whole lot, now does it? And then when you go to the fully tuned system, you get another 6%. But once again, this is at 1080p. We are GPU bound a lot of the time. Now, if we go from stock all the way up to the fully tuned system, that nets you a plus 13% increase. It's not 6 plus 6 because those 6% compound upon each other and get you a 13% increase. So remember, this is the exact same system, same RAM, same everything, just with an overclock and memory tune. Now, if we take the GPU out of the equation, we can see here the XMP kit, although it is at 5.2 gigahertz, just tuning the RAM nets us an additional 8%. So from XMP to not XMP and fully tuned, that's an additional 8% performance. Then the HP V10s compared to the Patriot Viper single rank, that is actually 5% faster on both the 1080p numbers and the 50% scaled numbers. It's 5% exactly on both. So I found that kind of interesting. So that does scale properly. And as I mentioned before, if you take a look at the 4x8 dual rank Vipers, so 2 kits of Vipers, we're getting the identical numbers effectively as the HP V10. So at 1080p, 123 FPS, 123, and then 130, 132. That's margin of error. So that would also have a 5% uplift, and this is repeatable on 2 completely separate motherboards. So alrighty guys, there you go. There's a lot to take away from this. Obviously, the HP V10s did very well. We were able to take from 3600 up to 4000. Now, this does require more voltage than something like a single rank Viper kit. However, in reality, it performed very, very similar to using 4 Patriot Viper sticks. So similar voltages, similar performance, similar numbers. So yeah, overall, I'd say that this is a pretty good option. As of recording, these kits are back in stock, but they are kind of limited. There's 2 available, so I will have a link in the description below if you're interested in picking one of these up. And as of right now, the Patriot Viper SteelSeries 4000 C19 kit which this doesn't matter. A lot of people get confused. It's like the C16 kit's better. Well, this is running at 1.35 volts. These C16 kits are running at 1.45 volts. It's the exact same RAM, just find whichever one's the cheapest. As of right now, this is the least expensive one. So 2 of these isn't significantly cheaper than buying this. So considering 4 DIMMs are harder to cool, I would recommend this over 2 of these. Now, however, I do recommend picking these up when they're on sale for about $80. You can check eBay and you can check Amazon pretty regularly. They do go on sale pretty often. Now, at that price point, I would actually still recommend going with the Viper kit because you can get them for $80. And when you need 32 gigabytes of RAM, if you don't need that right now, you can always add another kit later on. So this is just the cheaper and, well, technically similar performing RAM when on sale. But considering it's not on sale right now, I would recommend going this route. Now, assuming that you can't get your hands on these, let's say these 2 do sell out, there are alternative options here on Amazon. I will also have these linked down below. The next best option would be the Team Group T-Create Expert. This is Samsung B-Die as advertised, which is great. 32 gig kit, 3600 C14. It's the exact same RAM. It looks like it's even probably made by the same company, just because they all seem to have the same advertising. They pitch basically B-Die exactly the same. But regardless, this is a couple bucks extra, and it's basically going to be the exact same kit. So if you can't get the HPs and you want dual rank kit, well, this would be a good alternative. And then if you want the exact same kit, the Acer Predator Vestas, these are the exact same RAM chips. It's made by the exact same company. I know for a fact that this one is because I was approached by the company for doing a video and they're like, we do both of these. So this is literally the exact same kit as the HPs. Since it's $30 more, I would not recommend these, but this is still cheaper than a lot of other dual rank kits out there. So if you're like many out there that are just saying, no, I'm going to wait a few more years for DDR5, you're going to just stick it and wait it out on your current DDR4 platform, those are the best options for RAM that you can get here today. Now, personally, I would probably just do the Vipers, and if you need better cooling, you can always spend 20 bucks on a RAM fan, or if you keep it under 1.5 volts, typically that'll be fine. It's much easier on dual rank to hit 3800 than it is 4000. So if you want to keep voltages down a little bit to keep that heat down, maybe just go that route. You can get latencies that are very similar. You do lose some bandwidth, but it's not going to make that big of a difference. So that is another option. The other option is, what about going with something that's not Samsung B-Die? Does that make any sense? Well, I asked Kingston to send over their Kingston Fury Renegade DDR4 32 gigabyte 3600 C16 kit, and I wanted to see how this would compare. So we're going to check this out at XMP, basically the exact same stuff that I did with the HP in the next video, and we're going to see how far off this particular kit is. Now, this is a 32 gig kit that without the RGB runs for about $130, and with the RGB about $150. Got to pay that RGB tax. I have both of these linked down below if you want to start taking a look at them, but I do recommend waiting for my video next week where I deep dive into this kit. And I was very surprised by the results. It's very, very performant. Now, I might spoil the ending, but B-Die is faster. However, this is significantly cheaper, and is it worth that little extra performance? That's something only you can answer for yourself. So I'm going to go ahead and get you all of that data so you can make the best buying decisions that make sense for yourself at this point in time. But the other takeaway from this video is you can clearly see that overclocking your CPU helps, overclocking your memory helps, and if you can do one or the other, you can extract extra performance out of your system, especially if you're running something like a 3200 C16 XMP kit. Now, technically you can tune that up as well, but you're just not going to get as far. In reality, for something like Zen 3 and Alder Lake, minimum I would recommend is running 3800 on the RAM, which most 3600 kits will get there. Not all, but most should be able to get there. And then if you're running something like Zen 2, a 3600 kit makes the most sense. So running memory at 3200 megahertz here today in 2022, almost 2023, it just doesn't make any sense. RAM is cheap enough that it's just worth upgrading, and the performance uplift definitely is there. You get a bigger gap between tuning and overclocking your system than an RTX 3080 to an RTX 3090. So people spent $700-800 for that extra 10% performance. You can get more performance than that by just tuning your system and buying some better RAM. So hopefully this shows you guys the value of going ahead and tuning your system. It will keep your current system more viable for longer. So this way you just don't have to buy the latest thing. Instead of buying every CPU generation, maybe you buy every other. If you buy every other, maybe you buy every third, and so on and so forth. It should be able to push you off an entire other generation of upgrading. And in the long run, that's going to save you a lot of money. Now, if you're like me and you buy stuff and you flip them before they go EOL, well, that's a whole other story, but most of you guys don't do that. You want to keep your stuff as long as possible. That's why I see the arguments for AM4 and AM5 having that long-term support. A lot of people like that. So going ahead and making sure that you're getting the maximum performance out of your system simply just means you don't need to keep spending money, which saves you money, which makes you happier. You can buy a faster graphics card. You could upgrade more often on graphics cards, which will give you the most uplift in your games going forward. So if you guys like the video, please smash that like button. Please subscribe. Please share this around. Share with friends. And you definitely don't want to miss this, so hit the notification bell. This will be coming out next week, the video on the Renegade RAM. And yeah, like I said, for me, it was just very eye-opening because I was like, man, this is it's pretty good. Once again, it's not as good as B-Die, but for a 33% price cost, it's definitely very, very compelling. So I'm very interested to show you guys that. Hope you guys enjoyed the series here. We're going to be taking a look at a bunch of different stuff. Moving forward, I'm not going to focus so much on super high-end stuff. We're going to focus on older stuff and trying to extend the life out of it. Things are getting tighter. The economy's getting worse, and that's pretty much where the channel is going to be going. So making sure you have proper memory, especially when they're cheap right now. I mean, B-Die is expensive, but it's cheap for B-Die. You might as well get it while you can and just keep your system going. If you guys like this type of content, please let me know in that comment section. And yeah, if you're interested in any of the stuff, please make sure to use the affiliate links. That also helps support the channel and lets me get this stuff on hand. Thank you so much, guys. That's all I have for you here today. And I will catch you guys in the next video.